edition of East Coast Bias, of course, for our friends on the Ringer Gambling Show, and right here on FanDuel TV, rocking and rolling. Raheem the Dream Palmer, Joe, my favorite house, JJ John Jastremski. We have a whole lot to get to. We will break down all the ins and outs of the first round of the NBA postseason. We're coming off 3 games that were played on Wednesday night. We got a couple of monstrous game 3s that I am stoked to break down a little bit later on in the show. But fellas, the NFL on Thursday night will take center stage because we have been talking about the likes of Cam Ward and Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders and Abdul Carter and Jackson Dart. I could go on and on and on. But now, Joe House, it is NFL Draft Day. And, you know, it's interesting. A couple of years ago for me, House, this was one of my favorite events to bet. I go back to 2020. We didn't have sports during COVID. The Burrow, Tua, Herbert, that year, I was like so excited to bet the draft. This year, I'm having much more of a cautious approach because we not only have NBA playoff basketball, but there's just a lot of uncertainty outside of Cam Ward at 1 and where we're going to go from here. So I'll throw it to you this way, Joe House. The storyline that fascinates you the most from an intrigue/betting standpoint on Thursday night in the first round would be:
how many quarterbacks get drafted in the first round of the 2025 NFL draft? Because it feels like to me, JJ, we are all over the place with trying to connect these quarterbacks to these teams in need. And the overwhelming sentiment that I get watching the pundits, watching the smart guys, watching the sharps, watching the market, is that there's not a ton of enthusiasm for 3 quarterbacks to get drafted in the first round, which is so different from what we've seen the last handful of years. And so I'm in the sports book looking at, what odds am I going to get for taking the under on 2.5 quarterbacks drafted, and where selection-wise do I think the second quarterback to be drafted in this draft is going to go? That's where my head is at in terms of the big intrigue, JJ.
I understand it. Dream. Shedeur Sanders is a name that a lot of people have talked about for a whole lot of months. You go back a couple of months ago, looked like he was a shoo-in to be a top 5 pick. Now, there's some questions to, hey, is this guy going to fall out of the first round? Or are the Pittsburgh Steelers going to take him in the 20s? Is it possible a team like the Giants comes back up into the first round to go and get him? So I'll ask you the same question I asked Joe House. If there's something that you're looking to key in on here come Thursday, what would it be?
I mean, it's definitely Shedeur Sanders. I think is the story of the draft, despite the fact that Cam Ward is going to be the number 1 quarterback drafted. Everybody wants to know where Shedeur Sanders is going. He's like a better version of Ronnie James in the sense that he has this high-profile Hall of Fame father, and we all want to know where he wants to go. And, right now on FanDuel Sportsbook, they have these Ringer specials. They have Shedeur Freefall, Shedeur Sanders to be drafted 15th overall or later at -310. But then there's also some interesting ones. They got Shedeur Sanders to be drafted by the New York Giants or Pittsburgh Steelers, -106. But at the same time, you look at a lot of teams, they need a quarterback. The New Orleans Saints, they need a quarterback. What's going on with Derek Carr? So he could go anywhere. So there's a lot of exciting things on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Another one, New York Giants to select Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders, 1,100. So go on to FanDuel Sportsbook.
That's not bad value, Raheem. That really is not bad value. Here's the thing with that prop. I think most people are of the mindset that Travis Hunter is going to be the second pick in this draft and he's going to go to the Cleveland Browns. The problem is, Raheem, their general manager is a big-time poker player and has not exactly been the most truthful in kind of detailing what he says to the media and what necessarily is going to take shape when he makes a pick. So when I hear this GM going and calling Travis Hunter the next Ohtani, my first inclination is, there's no way in the world they're going to pass him up. Now I'm wondering if he's trying to gas the skids for maybe them to go and take Abdul Carter with the second pick. I don't know, Dream. That 11-1 is juicy.
I mean, it is juicy. I'm not recommending taking it, but I'm just letting you guys know if you go on FanDuel Sportsbook, there's plenty of options to bet for the draft.
JJ, you're the New York guy. We could see Hunter go second. That makes sense. what's the pathway for the Giants to step in and grab Sanders? And what's the calculus as to like when they have to do that?
You think about the job security for Joe Shane and Brian Dable. It's not there. They talked about quarterback till they're blue in the face. You sell progress by getting a young quarterback. Hey, if he looks good and you win 6 games, House, I'd say the likelihood in you coming back increases exponentially. The problem is, I don't think the Giants want to pass up the idea of taking Abdul Carter. Remember, when you think about the history of the Giants, it's Lawrence Taylor, it's Michael Strahan, it's Osi Umenyiora, it's Justin Tuck, it's all these premier, elite-level defensive players, and more specifically, defensive linemen. So you mentioned calculus. I wasn't very good at that. Going back to my days at Syracuse, I don't even think I made it to calculus. I took it in high school, and that was it for me. Stats, 221. Took my C+. See you later. I'll leave the math to the whiz kids. However, us here in the streets of New York City, you'll like this, Raheem. This is what we're going to do. I think Abdul Carter will be the pick for the Giants, and I think you'll see Shane try to do one of two things. Trade back into the first round for maybe Sanders. Maybe they have a love affair with Jackson Dart. I don't know. But if they don't end up with those two guys, House, what did Brian Dable coach up in Buffalo? A young, athletic, raw quarterback prospect in Josh Allen. And in no way, guys, am I suggesting that Jalen Milroe is Josh Allen reincarnated. Okay, we got a long way to go before I'm putting him in that class. But can't you see the Giants making that move in the second round and selling you on, hey, Dable is going to coach him up. You'll see him at the end of the year. And if he plays well, maybe it saves the job. That, to me, is how it shakes out for the Giants. But to answer your question, House, on Sanders at 3, kind of seems like an absolute no as far as I'm concerned.
I understand, and I don't disagree at all. It's just this idea of like, what's the pathway for them to get both Hunter and Sanders? They'd have to do some kind of make a big jump in if they grab Hunter at the spot where they should grab Abdul Carter. And they have resolved their quarterback situation. I mean, it doesn't really make sense unless you're in love with one of these kids. Just wait, because next year's quarterback class is better, and that feeds into some of my favorite sort of angles on this year's draft.
Speaking of quarterbacks, I find a thing interesting because right now on FanDuel Sportsbook, they got Shedeur Sanders to be the first quarterback drafted, not including Cam Ward at -195. They got Jackson Dart at +185. And that seems like a good bet with Jackson Dart.
I like it, Raheem. I like it a lot.
Here's the thing. They also have team by team. So if you look at Jackson Dart, the team to draft him, the New York Giants, is at +160. And then if you look at Shedeur Sanders, the favorite for Shedeur Sanders is the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I'm wondering if you just take Jackson Dart, +185 to be the first quarterback drafted, not including Cam Ward. And do you feel like the Giants are going to take him?
They absolutely could. Not with number 3, but they
definitely not with number 3.
Come back and get him. No way to taking him at 3. I think Dart to New Orleans, though, Raheem, is real and possible. They desperately need a quarterback.
That's +250 on FanDuel.
I like the price. To me, that price on Dart to go ahead of Sanders is factoring in exactly New Orleans and the Kellen Moore love affair going and making that pick. Sanders is interesting because, House, I don't see Mike Tomlin passing him up with their need at quarterback. I think he'd bring him into his system. I don't think it has anything to do with what may happen with Aaron Rodgers. I think if the Giants want Shedeur Sanders and it's not the 3rd pick, they got to get ahead of Pittsburgh. That's kind of the way I see it.
I totally agree, and I think that's exactly the sentiment. But I want to pick up on this Jackson Dart to the Saints thing because this is the correlated bet that I like the very best on the entire board, and it's this one. It is the New Orleans Saints in regular season wins to finish under 6.5 wins, -140. So here's the argument. I think they're going to tank. I think that the Saints are primed to completely hit the reset button. It makes no sense at all, unless they were in love with Jackson Dart from day one, from the end of the college football season. It makes no sense at all for them to go draft a quarterback at this stage with a brand new head coach in Kellen Moore, unless they absolutely adore the kid and think he's going to be a perfect fit for Kellen Moore. It makes much more sense for them to chill, let the quarterback class of 2026, which really does look like it has some prospects that deserve to be in the first round, where we're not quibbling about will there be 3 quarterbacks that deserve to be first round picks. I don't think that will be the case in 2026. Let this season play out. And, I'll be on some of these Saints futures. We'll see after the draft where everything lands. But right now, Saints under 6.5 wins at -140. That's my favorite bet for the NFL draft.
Sign me up right now. I got no problem with it. I think they're going to be the worst team in that division. And I think you hit on something that's important here, House. That's a team, whether they draft Jackson Dart or not, they finally, I think, have acknowledged we are in transition. We need to hit a little bit of a reboot or a reset. They're probably not going to have Derek Carr, not that he's any good at any point this year. And all of a sudden, the division's getting a little bit better. Penix in Atlanta, obviously seeing good things from Tampa each of the last 2 years, and Carolina finished up the season very strongly. The final one I want to hit on here, guys, from a storyline standpoint, Genty, Raheem. It seems like the market has really moved towards him becoming a top 10 pick, to the point where you're hearing the Raiders, if not Jacksonville. I mean, this is a guy where I was wondering, Raheem, if he was going to be there for you, Cowboys in the teens. I think that ship has sailed, my man. I don't see any way he ends up falling out of the top 10.
Yeah, like that one's very interesting to me as well, because we've seen the odd shift. So right now on FanDuel Sportsbook, the Jacksonville Jaguars are the odds-on favorite to draft Ashton Jenkins at -140, followed by the Raiders at +200. And earlier this week, the Raiders were a favorite. So it's probably going to be either one of those two teams. Which team are you guys backing?
It seems like Jacksonville, Raheem. And it's bizarre because I would never in a million years say to a first-year head coach the first thing you should do with a guy, and I don't even love ETN because you can't hold on to the damn football, but a team that's got needs specifically on defense that Jacksonville has, you're going to go and take a running back in the top 5 of the House. This is the PTSD I had being in New York and doing the draft back in the day when Saquon Barkley was drafted. This in no way is me disparaging Saquon or Genty or any of these guys. When you stink, that is the furthest thing from your mind should be, yeah, we want to go and draft a running back. A team that's good, yeah, I understand why you'd want to run it back on your side. Baltimore going and adding Derrick Henry. I totally get it. When you stink, you got other places to go and address. I'm sorry.
Well, here's the rationale for why Genty going to Jacksonville does make a little bit of sense to me. They need to figure out what they're going to do with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, this is it. Like they cannot have the investment that they've made in Trevor Lawrence and not get to the bottom of whether or not he is going to be their franchise quarterback going further, going beyond this season. And the most certain way to me of giving that offense the best chance is a multifaceted back like Genty, who the comp is Alvin Kamara. Genty himself says that's the comp. So you put that kind of, it's everything they hoped they were getting with Etienne, and Etienne ended up not being any of it. But if they are able to strike gold with Genty, then that does potentially give them some validation on the question of Trevor Lawrence, that he is their most important player on the entire football team.
Boys, we are just getting warmed up. We gave you a little draft appetizer right out of the gate, and there's some more. It's really not an appetizer. Who the hell are we kidding? It's a filet mignon. No, I don't like filet mignon. It's a ribeye. It's porterhouse. Medium rare.
Good,
there we go. Raheem knows my love language when it comes
Peter
to meat, when it
Luger's.
comes to steak. Medium rare, bacon, cream spinach, the whole deal. You get where I'm going. But we got more assorted entrees to get to. The NBA postseason has given us 2 tremendous matchups in Game 3 that we are going to break down. We'll look back on the games last night. A lot cooking on East Coast Bias. We're coming right back. Welcome back. A lot of drafts right out of the gate. We had a couple of Game 2s in the NBA that we got to break down. And we'll start, House, with the dominant Houston Rocket wire-to-wire win over the Golden State Warriors. And you think about Game 2 in this series, which is so incredibly physical, you kind of had a feeling, hey, Golden State got their game, veteran team, heading back to the Bay. kind of felt like Houston was the spot. However, Jimmy Butler goes down early in the second quarter in this game, and we've talked about it really since they've made the trade. The Warriors, when they don't have Jimmy Butler in those non-Steph Curry minutes, they can't get half-court offense. They can't do it to save their lives. You try doing it against one of the best teams defensively in the NBA, recipe for disaster. You throw in a monstrous game for Jalen Green, and we're talking about a Houston rout. So, is it one game for Golden State, or did you see this game and did it raise a couple of eyebrows and sound a couple of alarms for you?
The question is, what's the status of Jimmy Butler and this tailbone, the bruised pelvis? He's getting to the MRI, and we'll know how this series is going to play out based on that news. Fortunately for Golden State, they have the extra day of rest coming up here. But, this game went somewhat according to script. It was heartening from a Houston perspective to see them sharing the ball. A lot of guys got touches on the offensive end. Tyree Easton knocked down a couple buckets early. They were running the ball through Sengun. But most importantly, Jalen Green was confident with the ball. He played with purpose. He played with intent. All the guys got touches. It was equal distribution of shots in the first quarter. They got up by 10, up by a dozen, and that was the difference of the game, really, through the pendency of the game. But the Jimmy Butler injury changed the entire forecast. For a minute there, I thought, oh, boy, are we waving the white flag? The guys that Golden State pulled up off of their bench and set into the game. Now, some of that was out of necessity and maybe ultimately will be to the benefit of Golden State. We saw Jonathan Kuminga. That man can come off the milk carton. He was on the basketball floor tonight. So that maybe that will pay dividends for Golden State. But really, when Butler went out, it felt like the 10 points were never going to be closed. That gap was never going to get closed, Dream.
The clear stories of this game are the Jimmy Butler injury and my main man, Blasian Covey, Jalen Green, because he was just out of his mind. I mean, and it wasn't just offensively. If you looked at the way he was playing defense in that first quarter, I mean, he was grabbing and pulling Steph Curry. He was diving for loose balls. But offensively, he played the type of game that showed you why he was so highly coveted, coming into the NBA. I mean, 13 of 25, 8 for 18 from 3, and 38 points. He was just absolutely dominant, and that's the aggression that you want from Jalen Green, driving to the basket, shooting the 3. But I just was really impressed by his defense. And, as a team, the Houston Rockets, I mean, they had a really bad half-court offense in game 1, and they turned that around in game 2, led by Jalen Green. Sengun was awesome. I just think that the Rockets put together a total team effort. They were great defensively. I think, they got away with holding and pulling Steph Curry, and you saw, Kerr complaining about that. But you knew this was going to be a physical series. So, I mean, right now, FanDuel Sportsbook, it's strange because the Warriors are minus 174 favorites to win this series. They are giving them a 63.5% chance of winning this series, despite the fact that we don't know what's going on with Jimmy Butler at all. And if you look at the Golden State Warriors, it's a two-player team. It's Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler. I don't know who the rest of these guys are. I mean, they pulled a guy who was a lacrosse player in college and was out there playing with the German Bundesliga, and he was on the court in a playoff series. So, I mean, I don't know who else is going to step up for this Warriors team, but I can tell you right now that the pricing of this series is completely wrong.
Interesting about the pricing. House, to me, that price of minus 174 tells you our friends at FanDuel fully anticipate Jimmy Butler back for game number 3.
Yes, but it's looked like it's an opportunity. You better go hit that button at plus 146 if it's still there as this show goes live 10 a.m. Thursday morning on FanDuel TV. Plus 146, that's absolutely worth the risk of the injury to Butler being something more serious than it seems right now. I think that's a must play.
We had 2 other games, guys, in the Eastern Conference. No surprise. We're talking about Cleveland. We're talking about Boston with 2-0 series advantages. The storyline with Boston, Raheem, was involving Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum did not play in this game, but Boston has so many different ways to beat you. It doesn't seem to matter against the Orlando Magic. And Orlando is just an offensively challenged team. I mean, let's just call it like it is, whether it's pacing, shooting, whatever you want to call it. Cleveland looked like they were going to run Miami out of the gym. And Miami, they're tough. They're well coached. They may not be as talented as they've been in years past. It's not the same version of the Heat, but they're just not going to embarrass themselves in these playoff games. And they got that to within one possession inside the final couple of minutes before Cleveland pulled away. If there is a grand takeaway you would have from both series, which are very unsurprising 2-0s, what would it be with Cleveland, Miami, Boston, and Orlando?
The takeaway for Boston or Orlando is that Orlando just doesn't have enough. I mean, you look at Paolo Banchero. He played 43 minutes. Franz Wagner played 40 minutes. You can't have those. You can't have any one of those players off the court for a single second. I mean, Banchero was a -6. Wagner was a -7. Literally, anytime one of those players is off the floor, the Magic are in trouble because they just cannot score efficiently. So even without Jason Tatum, it just feels like this Magic team is drawing dead. Now, when it comes to Cleveland and Miami, I just think Miami just doesn't have enough. I think, Cleveland, they went out and jumped out to a huge lead, and it almost felt like they got bored. And obviously, Miami, they're a tough team. They're going to make you work for it. But I just think both of these teams are drawing dead, and ultimately, this is going to be 4-0, maybe 4-1.
Yeah, the interesting thing to me is that both the underdogs covered. We had a 12-point spread in that Cleveland game, and we had a 10.5-point spread in the Boston game,
and
JJ.
that number, House, it was all about where you got that number between Boston and Orlando with the Tatum news. Just saying.
I hate to bring this up on the show. Our beloved producer, Cerruti, man, Franz Wagner shooting, what is he now, 2 for 13 from 3? And this is the thing, if like Orlando's firepower is already compromised, that man needs to spend this summer working on the three-pointer. I said it before the season started. It was the one thing, the one demand I made of the Orlando Magic and Franz Wagner was to get that three in order. It is still not there. But I wouldn't be surprised if either one of those teams gets one of their home games, but these are going to be gentlemen sweeps at best in both series.
Well, see, I was trying to figure out, okay, who's more likely to win a game? We all kind of felt it was Miami going into the series, but now I'm kind of at the point, House. Do we just moneyline parlay these two teams, game 3, game 4, in and out?
Sure, yeah, that's fine. We're talking about the dogs.
No, I'm talking about the favorites. I'm not getting cute here. Give me Boston and Cleveland. Put them out of their misery. And I do think out of those two teams, Miami, Raheem, is still more likely to win a game. I just think Boston can't score.
Well, the market disagrees with you. The market is saying Orlando has a better chance because Orlando's a 5.5 point.
That's got to be because of the Tatum injury, though.
Orlando's a 5.5 point dog. Miami is a 6.5 point dog.
The Orlando thing makes sense because Brown is dinged up, and he had a tremendous game tonight. He was the difference. But if if they try to manage his minutes with an eye towards ultimately what are we trying to accomplish in these playoffs, because he only played 30 minutes in game 1. They definitely managed his minutes in game 1. They needed him. It's a good thing they did so for this game 2. But let's see how the Celtics play it in game 3 and game 4.
When we come back, we have 2 very juicy game number 3s coming up. Then we have the Thunder and the Memphis series, which cannot fit the juicy description. But will the Knicks bounce back as small favorites? The Clippers, a bigger favorite than maybe you would have thought after the first 2 games against the Denver Nuggets. A lot more NBA postseason breakdowns coming your way. East Coast Bias right here on FanDuel TV. We'll come right back. Welcome back. All right, now that we recap the games that were played on Wednesday night, let's now look ahead to the double dip that the NBA is giving us here on Thursday. And we're going to start, House, with the game that's near and dear to my heart. I know it's not the better series. I know the Clipper and Nugget series has been as good as it gets. It's been the best series in the NBA so far through the first 2 games, but we're going to work in chronological order here. 7 o'clock, the New York Knicks, a 1-point favorite on FanDuel Sportsbook at the Detroit Pistons. Knicks are still minus 250, 260 to go and win this series. House, we talked about it the other night. It was a pathetic showing from the Knicks offense, not getting the ball to Karl Anthony Towns, way too much isolation from Jalen Brunson, Tom Thibodeau not finding a way to get the ball diversified. And, oh, by the way, Mikal Bridges missing wide open three-point shots. Yet, the odds makers still, at this point in time, pretty confident in Knicks' chances to go and win this series. We have a point spread at -1. What do you stand on Game 3, House?
I don't know what to do, JJ. I almost want to ask you, what's the word on the street? What are we hearing? Because here's the math for me. Tell me how many shots Jalen Brunson's going to take. Set the line at 27.5. If it's under, then I like the Knicks. If it's over, then I'm on the Pistons. And here's the reason for the conundrum. The Pistons have beat the Knicks' ass 7.5 quarters in this series. They played 8 quarters, the Knicks and the Pistons lost about, 7 minutes of game 1, and that's why the series is tied 1-1. But overwhelmingly, the Pistons have been the more physical team. They have been the team that understands their identity. I mean, they survived the Cade Cunningham stinker in game 1 and had an 8-point lead in the fourth quarter in that stinker. I don't think we're getting any more Cade Cunningham stinkers. And I think that the Pistons know their rotation and know their defensive identity. And it's up to the Knicks to adjust. I mean, we cannot be in a world where Jalen Brunson's taking 28 shots. They're just not going to win that way. So I'm leaning in the Pistons direction. I already bought the Pistons for the series. I can't unsee.
What you got, 2-1? 2-1, House?
It's plus 180 on the FanDuel Sportsbook right now. I just can't unsee those 7.5 quarters.
Yeah, I kind of agree with House on this one. And, it's unfortunate because I felt like I was a step behind on this series. And, in game 1, as I told JJ, we took the Pistons with the 7.5 or so. And it felt like they should have covered that game. And, they let the rope go. The Knicks had that 21-0 lead led by Jalen Brunson in campaign. And then in game 2, they did what I expected them to do in game 1. And, Cade Cunningham has shown up to this series. And, my model actually likes the Pistons. I make the Pistons, around 1-point favorites. So it's right along with the market. So I'm not seeing too much of an edge here, but I just think the way the Pistons have dominated this series, you kind of have to give them the edge. But I'm not going to play anything on game 3 right now as far as the side. But, the interesting thing about the total is that, game 2 was kind of like a slugfest after, you saw a lot of points in game 1. You're seeing a lot of these totals dying. So you kind of got to wonder if this is going to be a slower pace series going forward. I probably would lean towards the under. But the way the Knicks are playing right now, I don't know how you just don't play Jalen Brunson over on the points, because it just feels like he's going to take as many shots as possible.
Guys, if you go back the last 2 years, you're going to see similar volume from Jalen Brunson from an offensive standpoint. The difference is 2 years ago, what was on the roster? Depleted, hobbled Julius Randle, an untrustworthy R.J. Barrett. Last year, it was Dante DiVincenzo and Josh Hart because OG Anunoby ended up having the bum leg and was out for basically the entirety of the Indiana series, where you could understand why Jalen Brunson was in a position where he was yucking up as many shots as he did. I'm with you on that correlation, House. This has got to be a game where Karl Anthony Towns is more involved. This has got to be a game where OG Anunoby is more involved. However, I actually think, fellas, going to Detroit may actually hurt the Pistons here in game 3. I know that's going to sound crazy. I'm going to tell you why. They are a young team going through the postseason for the first time. I think the energy level for them may be a little out of whack. Being at home, sometimes that home crowd doesn't necessarily work to your advantage. Plenty of times it does, but we've also seen instances where you're at home, you're excited, you're a little overamped, and you get a little tight. The Knicks, on the other hand, have a lot of guys with postseason experience. A lot of them. Towns, zillion playoff games. Anunoby won a championship. Brunson, Hart, on and on we go. I think the Knicks respond here, guys. I think it might be a lengthy series. It's probably 2-2 going back to Madison Square Garden for game number 5. But I'm going to say, after what happened with the just woeful effort you got as far as execution, turnovers, sloppiness, House, you mentioned 7.5 quarters the Pistons were kicking the Knicks butt. I'd say 7. Because you know what? That fourth, I'll tell you why. because that fourth quarter in game number 2, we almost had a repeat of game number 1. It went from 13 to the game being tied within a minute.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I'll say 7. I'll say 7 out of the 8.
I'll concede it. I'll concede it. You're right. They were down, with 6 minutes left in game 2. The Knicks were down 10 and tied the game with less than 2 minutes left. They did it. So, but here's the thing, JJ. I take your point, and I think it's a good one about the energy of the young guys and being too overamped. But here are the guys that are going to make the difference in this series and I think impact game 3 specifically. It's Oscar Thompson, it's Tim Hardaway Jr., it's Malik Beasley, and who am I forgetting?
Tobias Harris.
Tobias Harris.
But look at the 3-pointers for those guys. In game 2, Hardaway Jr. was 0 for 6 from 3. My guy Malik Beasley was 1 for 8 from 3. Tobias Harris 1 for 4. I think when they get home, this is the thing. Those secondary guys, when they're in home friendly confines and they're on the bucket that they've been playing on,
they usually play better. The UV Brown theory. I get that.
Just those threes. And if they hit some percentage of them, I don't expect Malik Beasley to shoot 1 for 8 from 3 anymore this series. That would be my caution.
Boys, let's go from the Knicks and the Pistons to the juiciest series in the NBA postseason. It's not even close. The Denver Nuggets and the Los Angeles Clippers. You have a series tied at 1 apiece. If I'm the Clippers, I'm saying I should have won the first 2 games of this particular series. That's just the way I see it. Kawhi Leonard obviously coming off one of the best postseason games he's played, probably going back to his days with the Toronto Raptors. Raheem, I'll start with you on this one. This line opened up at 4.5. Seeing 5 in the market. We talked about how the Clippers now have been jacked up as far as the series price is concerned. What do you stand, buddy boy? Clippers, Nuggets, Clippers line 5.
So this one's interesting because when you look at through 2 games of this series, the Clippers have 215 points. The Nuggets have 214 points. The Clippers have 31 turnovers. The Nuggets have 31 turnovers. Games with stars who had 7 turnovers. The Clippers have 1. The Nuggets have 1. So you're probably wondering, how do you get to a 5-point spread? And these are 2 equally matched teams. I hate to say it, I'm taking the Clippers. I'm laying the 5.
I'm just surprised. Raheem, listen, we've been on the Clippers since day 1 in this series. We think they're the better team. They are the better team. I totally understand it.
Make the case. I want to hear Dream's case because I'm right on the edge.
First things first, the market tells all. The fact that the Clippers are 5-point favorites kind of lets you know where odds makers are going with this series. And the biggest thing about this Clippers team is that they were the number 1 3-point shooting team in the league this year. They're only shooting 38% from 3 in this series. And we talk about how they should have won game 1 and game 2. We talk about home court advantage within the postseason. I have it around 4 or 5 points or so. I think there's another level in which the Clippers can get to. It appears that, Kawhi Leonard is the healthiest he's ever been. James Harden didn't have a good game too. If you get a good James Harden and a good Kawhi Leonard in the same game, because, Kawhi Leonard turned the ball over a ton in game 1. So you got a good James Harden game in game 1, a good Kawhi Leonard game in game 2, and the 3-point shooting still hasn't shown up. I think there's another level they can get to. And then also Michael Porter Jr., he is questionable for game 3. So when you combine all those facts, the market, the fact that you didn't get both of your stars show up at the same time, the 3-point shooting, the Michael Porter Jr. injury, I'm laying the points with the Clippers.
All right, House, where do we stand on game 3?
I wanted to be persuaded to grab the number with the Clippers. I feel more comfortable, honestly, with them on a money line play. I do like them winning, but the difference has come down to execution in these first 2 games. The one thing to me that where there's room for improvement with the Clippers is their bench. All season long, there has been criticism, appropriate criticism, of the Denver Nuggets for what they've been bringing off the bench. They have beaten the Clippers bench-wise in both of the first 2 games. I don't expect that to continue. I think the Clippers have room for improvement out of Batum and Derek Jones Jr. and especially Bogdanovich. Like he hasn't really. I think he's a little bit of an X factor to this thing. he's a vet that's been around. I mean, he's, later in his career now, but I think that there is an advantage still for the Clippers. So my inclination would be to go ahead and side with Dream, but I think I'm probably going to end up just playing the Clippers on the money line in some kind of parlay thing.
House, one thing I need to see from the Clippers, they're going to cover this game. And if there's one area of weakness, in addition to the three-point shot, they got to do a better job on glass. I mean, they have gotten absolutely destroyed on offensive rebounds. I mean, how many times did you see it in game one? Did you see it again in game two, where it's second, third, and fourth opportunities for the Nuggets? You got to be preaching if you were Tyronn Lue. This cannot continue. This cannot be a thing. I think you'll see the Clippers prioritize that with the couple extra days off. And Raheem, we are riding together on this one, big boy. You know I'm on the Clippers for the series. I took the Clippers in the first two games. Don't stop me now, to quote Freddie Mercury and Queen. I am taking the Clippers, and I am laying the 5 in game number 3. Okay, we got one more game, guys, to get to on Thursday night. House, how do we not take Oklahoma City? Listen, it might be overjuiced. It might be overvalued. You want to tell me that one of these games they're going to mess around a little bit? I could easily see it. I'm telling you right now, I'm not betting Memphis in either one of game 3 or game 4. I will not do it. Can't do it.
Under no circumstances can I, my own self, make a case for Memphis, nor tell all of our great friends out there in FanDuel world to have anything to do with this Memphis Grizzlies team. Oklahoma City at less than 10 points is an absolute bargain. I feel like this is, at least in the terms of this particular matchup, akin to what we watched with UConn when they went on the run they went on into the national championship a couple years ago and beat everybody by double digits without really breaking a sweat. Oklahoma City minus 8.5 is a wonderful number, and I'm on it.
The Memphis Grizzlies, they cannot score against the Oklahoma City Thunder. When you look at their offense and how they're performing, they have the second worst offensive rating amongst all postseason teams, 106 points per 100 possession. You guys saw The Last Boy Scout. You saw the way Billy Blanks opened up that movie. That is the only way John Morant and this Memphis Grizzlies team is going to score, because they're not scoring on this Thunder team. And if you can't score on this Thunder team, you just don't have a chance, because the Thunder right now, they have the second best offensive rating. So a lot of times there's that tax. When you see teams go home down 0-2 in the first quarter and the first half, I almost think that you need to be playing against that, because I think the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to make a statement right now. The Oklahoma City Thunder, they're laying 2.5 in the first quarter. They've absolutely dominated. So I don't know if I'm going to do that, but I think you could safely play the Thunder to win and cover this game. So I think the series over.
No messing around. Not getting cute in game 3 or game 4. No thank you on the Memphis Grizzlies. I don't care how high these numbers may get. All right, we'll get to, when we return, the Laker T-Wolves series, where the Lakers responded in a big way in game 2. It was the better whistle, no doubt. It was the brilliance of LeBron James, but there were a couple of moments there that got a little hairy in the fourth quarter. Is that a warning sign for the Lakers for the remainder of this series? Are they in good shape to get to the second round? We'll dive into that. We'll also try to make sense of Milwaukee. Any sort of a pulse? Shame on me for betting them in game 2. We'll come right back. Boys, Lakers T-Wolves is going to be a long series. I think that conclusion became obvious after watching game 2. Got a bounce back game from the Lakers. They were much better defensively. Minnesota was all out of sorts. Raheem, what's your read now on this series? Because Minnesota looked as dominant as could be in game 1. You got the classic Laker response in game 2. Series prices moved down a little bit. Minnesota obviously has home court advantage, and they did make a run in the fourth quarter of this game, which to me kind of was a little concerning for the Lakers. If you laid the 5.5 like I did, I was kind of holding my nose. I was a little antsy there over those final few minutes. What's your read here, buddy boy, as we move to Minneapolis for game 3?
I don't know if there's a series that I hate more, because, and look, I'm enjoying it. But from a betting perspective, I absolutely hate the series. I mean, in game one, you have the Minnesota Timberwolves have a 65% effective field goal percentage. That's in the 100th percentile of all games. In game two, they have a 41% effective field goal percentage. That's in the 3% of all NBA games this season. So you got two extreme outlier performances. And I know in game one, the Lakers, they just didn't cover shooters. They weren't physical. In game two, they were much more physical. But the truth has to be somewhere in the middle. So I think these are pretty evenly matched teams. I mean, look, Minnesota had 15 points in the first quarter, and from then you knew that the game was over. And, the Wolves kind of got like a rough whistle. Obviously Luka Doncic, he dominated Rudy Gobert. I don't know what he has against that man, but when he sees him, it's just like barbecue chicken. I just think these two teams are evenly matched. We gave out over 5.5 games at the start of this series. I think that's the way to,
That smells like a winner. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, Raheem, but that sounds like a winner.
Yeah. The one thing that kind of stands out to me is that the pace of these games are very, very slow. I mean, extremely slow. We got 87 possessions in game two. So, I think you could kind of be looking under as far as the total on these games. I mean, you're seeing the totals just completely drop in all of these games. I just don't know if you can make them low enough when you have a series that's just this slow. So they open up at 206.5. Even if the Wolves shoot a little better, if this pace continues like this, I think you have to be looking under, but I don't have anything on the side at all.
Yeah, JJ, I don't trust this Minnesota team because it looked to me like there was a combination of two things going on with this game against the Lakers game two. Is it possible that they got a little bit of LA-itis, that they won the first game and then they found themselves perhaps celebrating in some form or fashion? Because I can't put any kind of sense or logic on how bad Naz Reid and Jaden McDaniels were in game two. They were terrible. They look like they couldn't find their way halfway through the offense. They couldn't find the offensive end. The shots they took were bad shots. They weren't anywhere close to hitting them. Now, look, here's the thing. If you play Rudy Gobert 29 minutes and Mike Conley 21 minutes, Gobert 29, Conley 21, that's a loser. You lose those basketball games against the Lakers if you're playing those two dudes that many minutes. The reason that Chris Finch had to do it is because Dante DiVincenzo was in foul trouble very early on. Now, he ended up with 4 fouls. He only played 16 minutes. That doesn't make any sense. This is why I'm saying this thing about an experiment with the game too, the way that Minnesota approached it. I mean, they did have a chance in the fourth quarter to cut that sizable Laker lead from 9 points to 3 points. Anthony Edwards took a three. It just hit the back of the rim. He was dead on. But they need performance out of McDaniels and Reed and DiVincenzo. They need to not have, it's fine. Just take Gobert out. Like, I don't know what they think they're getting out of him. He's not providing rim protection. A terrific 29-minute game with 0 blocks and 2 steals. Congratulations. The dude can't catch the basketball on the offensive end. And Conley is dead. He's DOA. 0 for 5 from the field, 0 for 3 from 3. I don't understand what the point is of double-digit minutes for either one of them, other than to give a blow to some of these other guys. They wasted a great game by Julius Randle, in my humble opinion. So I still like Minnesota in the series. I think they're deeper. I think they're more versatile. They have a lot of ways to score. But if they're going to mess around this way, then you can't trust them. It's a good thing we got invested the way we did on the over 5.5 games in the series.
And we'll get to best bets in a little bit. Telling, though, that line went from 1 to 3 rather quickly. So something to keep an eye on for the Lakers and the T-Wolves. Raheem, I liked Indiana for the series. I bet game 1 series, Indiana. I bet him in game 1. Why was I dumb enough to bet the Bucks in game 2? I got suckered into that one. I almost snaked the cover at the end, which I absolutely had no business getting. Do you put any stock in Milwaukee maybe having a moment in this series with that rally late in the fourth quarter? Or did it just match up terribly with this Indiana team?
I think you got to put a little stock into it. But there's a difference between putting stock in it and, giving them, maybe one game at home in them winning the series. I don't think they're going to win this series at all, but I think there's a reason why odds makers have them at 4.5-point favorites for game 3. Now, am I willing to back the Bucks at 4.5-point favorites? Me personally, no, I'm not backing them because I just don't trust. I don't trust the defense. I don't trust the defense at all. I did play the over for game 2, but at some point in time, this is a market and it starts to be priced out. You're looking at, it was 227 for game 2. We're at 230 now. Like, that's gigantic for how these games have been going. So I'm not going to touch the side or the total. I think the way to approach this is just from the props market.
I'm going to go ahead. I know that this is putting me right there in the class of squares. I like the over because the only way for the Bucks to compete is with 3-point shooting variance. It's for their guys. It's for Brook Lopez to get. He got off 4. He needs to get off 6. It's for Taurean Prince. He got off 3. I'm talking about game 2. He needs to get off 6. Dame Lillard got off 8. He needs to get off 10. And if they're hitting their threes and playing at the pace that the Pacers want to play at, then I like an over. I'm not willing to do anything with the side, even though I do think the Bucks win this game 3.
Boys, we'll come back, wrap it up. Best bets, send you on your way on this fine Thursday, right after this. All right, boys, best bedtime. Send you on your way. Thursday, House, take it away.
Let me repeat for the NFL draft. My favorite bet is the New Orleans Saints under 6.5 wins for the regular season. I think that they're headed towards Tanksville. And then in terms of our NBA slate, I am going to parlay the LA Clippers on the money line along with Oklahoma City laying the 8.5. That combination pays out at plus 179. That is a best bet.
Dream.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a few. We're going to go with the draft. Matthew Golden, first wide receiver taken, plus 220.
Woo, okay.
Next, we're going to go with the Los Angeles Clippers, -5. And then finally, we're going to go with the Lakers Wolves under 206.5. Actually, we're going to go with another one. Bobby Portis over 13.5 points.
Giving us a prop, sending us on our way. I got a couple as well. I am going to take the Los Angeles Clippers with my boy Raheem Palmer laying the 5 against Denver in game 3. I'm going to take the Minnesota Timberwolves to respond in a big way at home. I'm going to lay the 3. I think the market moving the way that it has should tell you something after a convincing Laker game 2. I think Minnesota responds in game number 3, and I'm going to take over 2.5 quarterbacks selected in the first round, boys, because I think Shedeur Sanders and Mr. Dart are going to find their way to maybe Pittsburgh or the Saints and the Giants. Somebody is going to go and trade up for their quarterback. That's going to do it. Joe House, Raheem Palmer, John Jastremski signing off. Enjoy the draft. Enjoy the basketball. We out. Be good, everybody.